Heracon Publishing presents Swap Club 3, The Climax. Written by Lauren Wise. Narrated by Alysa King. Dedication. For Jason, my love. Forward. Or, in case you missed this in the last two books, disclaimer. Swap Club 3, The Climax, is fiction, which means I made it up. Yes, all of it. I have a vivid imagination. You can ask my mom. Nothing in these pages is based on true events. And to reiterate one more time, this book is not about me. I am not Valerie Matthews, and no, Sabrina Weinstein isn't who you think she is. Unless your name is in fact Sabrina Weinstein, in which case, I apologize. What a shitty coincidence. For you. A fine line has been drawn in the sand between what you've heard and what I've written. You get to choose what to believe. I'll leave that to your imagination. Or perhaps you know something that I don't. Rumors are a funny thing. I heard them, you heard them, our parents have heard them, but there's no real swap club. So, consenting adults, take this book and find a quiet place where I can take you away one last time. Lauren Wise. Prologue. I watched as Jeremy lowered his mouth down onto her, causing her to fling her legs into the air. His mouth moved around, her hands wildly pulling on his hair as she bit down on her lower lip. He teased and taunted her with his tongue, and because I had been lucky enough to have Jeremy's mouth on me before, I knew exactly what he was doing to her. My eyes scanned the massive private dining room, overflowing with a sea of people, crowding around the large round table she was on. I tried not to stare at the couples holding on to each other and caressing one another while she entertained. Watching her was one thing, but letting my eyes wander felt intrusive. Weird, I know, considering where we were, but there's always a fine line in Swap Club between appropriately salacious and bad etiquette. It wasn't hard keeping eyes on her. I was fascinated by her confidence, her ability to give in to her fantasy, clearly a fantasy she wanted, to be on exhibition for a swarm of people to watch. The woman let out another deep groan. We could hear her even over the house music that was blasting. Jeremy opened his eyes and took one note of the throng while he gladly devoured her in front of us all. I could never do what she was doing. I'd be afraid of the ingrown hairs, the cellulite on my ass squeezing together and on display. I would rather die. This wasn't the same as being a sweet table, covered in desserts. Well, at least in my head it wasn't. But she, on the other hand, wanted this. And she was getting turned on just by lying there naked for us to see. Jeremy was an added bonus. The smell of pheromones in the air was so strong, it was as if someone had lit a Yankee candle called Sex Bouquet, or perhaps it was Febreze porn, set fresh. You may know the smell, and if you don't, it's probably because you have never been to a place where it was more than just you and your partner in the room having sex. The candles flickered against the cream walls, casting giant shadows of her body reeling in delight. There was no escaping her. Her moans grew louder, more violent. I clenched my hands together in anticipation for what was to come. She looked over to the side and gazed at the room full of spectators doing this to her. This was a party I would never in a million years have seen myself at. And yet, I was partly responsible for the planning of it. Even with all my anxieties and social awkwardness, I was managing to keep my composure. There was something about this environment that made me feel secure, because we were all in this together. We needed each other, and this club, to make us feel normal. Without that, We were just a herd of restless suburban moms and dads sitting in cold hockey rinks, attending school recitals, and cutting up our kids' food. We needed Swap Club, like a scuba diver needs an oxygen tank. We were drowning in our personal shit without it. My legs started to feel shaky as I watched Jeremy unbutton the woman's dress and expose her breasts. Not because I was nervous, but because I was feeling turned on. I panned the room quickly. My curiosity had gotten the better of me. To hell with good manners. As if they could throw me out. Most of the couples had their hands hidden inside their partner's clothing, alternating between kissing and watching her. I took a step backward and leaned my body against the only person in the world I'd feel comfortable at this party with. I hadn't even thought he would be here, but here we were. Our bodies were chemically drawn to each other. His hands felt accustomed to the curves of my waist as he pulled me in. I looked back at Jeremy on the table, with his face buried in the folded black pleats of her Chanel skirt as she squealed in ecstasy. I knew what he was doing to her. I could feel waves down my legs and up my spine. Maybe it was that Glade plug-in perfuming the air with sexual liberation, but I caved. I turned my head to kiss him. In a matter of seconds, I had shifted from being a voyeur to being an exhibitionist. His lips touched mine again, and I knew things would never be the same. My name is Valerie Matthews, swinger, lover, friend, and foe. Proud, most of the time, mother of two, and finally doing what I should have done years ago. Mr. Wonka. Don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he wanted. Charlie Bucket. What happened? Mr. Wonka. He lived happily ever after. Roald Dahl, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Chapter 1. Eat Your Mick Heart Out. With my luggage packed in my trunk, I thought to myself as I pulled up to the stop sign that some decisions are easy, almost too easy. For instance, buying my favorite shampoo because it's on sale, even though I have 2 of them in my shower stall already. Or staying in the freezing cold skating rink instead of waiting in my heated car so I can watch Michael score the winning goal at his hockey game on Tuesdays, and Mondays, and Thursdays, and sometimes twice on Sundays. Or, once a day, forcing Hallie to eat at least 1 bite of something that isn't beige. All easy decisions. But choosing between going to Toronto and working on my marriage with Ryan, or sitting on a tropical beach with Tyler and seeing what it would be like to be together for longer than a night, or taking over Swap Club for Celeste, who decided to retire. Not so much. The easy part was putting my luggage in the car. I hadn't even noticed a woman pull up next to me who had been sitting behind me, waiting for me to go. I just sat at the stop sign, contemplating how this was all going to go down. I looked over my shoulder, and the woman signaled me to roll down my window. "Are you okay, dear? Do you know where you're going?" "Yes, I know where I'm going. Thanks," I replied. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I wanted it now. I smirked to myself in the rearview mirror while I pressed my foot on the gas. I knew I'd had some crazy nights this past year, thanks to Celeste and her plan to groom me as her replacement. But tonight, I was really going to let loose. I could already taste it. I took a deep breath, about to face one of the easiest decisions I had been confronted with since joining Swap Club. I turned into the curved driveway and pulled up to the 4-foot electronic menu. Perhaps the decision to come to McDonald's and contemplate my life over a burger was the easy part. Deciding between the Big Mac, McNuggets, and McChicken was proving to be more difficult. "Votre commande, s'il vous plaît?" A bored-as-hell voice prompted me from the McDonald's intercom. I could tell she had a weird fuzz growing on her chin and neck just by the sound of her voice. Don't ask. Maybe it was the psychosomatic ESP I had. Hello? I salivated, looking at the photos of the perfectly styled hamburgers. They were shiny, with impeccably placed sesame seeds. The orangey sliced cheese lay neatly over a juicy burger. The lettuce a perfect shade of photoshopped green. Votre commande? I'll have the Big Mac trio, please. Anything else, madame? Yeah. I hesitated as I bit my lip and pulled off a piece of cuticle from my finger that had clearly been bothering me since I had been anxiously gnawing on it all day. Oui? I could tell the bored-as-hell woman was counting the minutes until her shift was over. Dealing with indecisive people at her McDonald's takeout window might not have grown her patience, but it might have grown her facial hair. 9 McNuggets, a McChicken, an Oreo McFlurry, and an apple pie, I blurted out. Les sauces for les chicken McNuggets, madame? 2 barbecue, 2 hot mustard, and a sweet and sour, please. I replied, unfazed. There is a charge for les extra sauces. Okay. Like, Lay's extra sauces are the issue here? I thought sarcastically. Will that be all, madame? Yes. No. I stared at the menu. The French fries were taunting me. Can I please supersize my fries? I was now in Morgan Spurlock's fast food social experiment. Oui, madame. Is that all? Yes. Like I needed anything more than the 8,000 calories I had just ordered. It will be $28.35, s'il vous plaît. Advance to the window. I pulled up to the takeout window where the bored-as-hell woman, who was actually a kind-looking middle-aged lady, slid open the glass barrier that separated me, temporarily, from what would only be a terrible stomachache in about a half hour. My kids are starved, I lied as I handed the money over to the lady. After a humiliating conversation with the lady at the pickup window, as she handed me 3 brown bags of food, about the imaginary kids' softball team I was bringing dinner to on a freezing December day with filthy snow covering every inch of the grass, I drove around to find the perfect spot where no one could see me, and I laid out my McBuffet in my parked car. I felt a pang of guilt as I dipped a McNugget in the hot mustard sauce and took a bite. It tasted as good as I remembered. My last memory of McDonald's was with my late father, who had no idea how to cook. Ryan hated McDonald's, and because of him, it had been over 15 years since I'd had McAnything. Our kids had never even set foot inside one. Well, maybe once, when Hallie was potty training and I had to pull into one before she wet the car seat. I mean, I recognized that the odds that a parent's friend never took them, or that they didn't get McDonald's on a school trip, are small. But somehow, Michael and Hallie never experienced a germ-infested hamburglar slide. Were my kids deprived of a McChildhood? Ryan and I were living separately still, so maybe I could McContaminate the kids a little while he was in Toronto, and he'd be none the wiser. I shoved in another bite of my Big Mac, and I won't confirm or deny that I shoved McNuggets in the middle of my sandwich. But I can tell you that I got a big bite of chicken, burger, and dripping hot sauce all at one time. When my mom had parent-teacher interviews for my sister Janet and me, my dad would throw us into the back seat of his Buick Century, and we would go to McDonald's twice a year. I dipped my fries in the barbecue sauce, and a warm feeling came over me as I remembered my dad's face beaming at us through the glass window as he sipped his coffee while Janet and I played tag inside the McDonald's indoor germ-infested playground. He would watch as we made fast friends with a bunch of strange kids we nicknamed Girl with a Striped Shirt, Boy with Yellow Sweatpants, Girl with a Boy's Haircut, Weird-Sized Head, Smelly Boy who needs deodorant but doesn't have any. You get the picture. The truth was, we all knew our parents gave us the token 10 minutes and then we're going home. There was never enough time to learn names, and the game tag lends itself beautifully as an activity for kids living in a city where language barriers were prevalent and you only had a few minutes to play. No one needed to talk. We all needed to run our asses off and sweat away the Happy Meals we had all just consumed way too close to bedtime. Sometimes I would lick my hand after I wiped the sweat from my brow. I'm telling you, my sweat tasted exactly like French fries. Nowadays, when kids are off playing, parents barely pay attention. I'm guilty of it too. We women wonder why we have sagging jowls at age 30. It's because our faces are constantly down, lost in the endless abyss of social media's eternal swipe and tap. It's sad. Thinking back, my heart would ache if I looked for my dad's attention while I was playing in the McDonald's playground and he was trolling strangers' pictures instead of watching me play tag with Boy Who Needs Longer Pants because he grew over the holidays. Honk! I got startled as a man drove by and honked his horn at someone pulling out of a parking spot. My mouth was full and my fingers were covered in a layer of oily salt. It was scandalous. The irony was astonishing. I felt more devious sitting in my car, gorging myself on trans fats, than I did gorging myself on strangers. I looked over at the McChicken, McFlurry, and unopened apple pie. I was already full, but I still needed to have a taste. Which reminded me of why I was sitting there in the first place. I, Valerie Matthews, always wanted more than I needed. It was who I was, unapologetically so. Trying to stuff myself into these cookie-cutter shapes was ending in misery for everyone. Just that fast, the future I wanted took form. I knew the apple pie would be sweet and warm. I knew the McFlurry would be refreshing and satisfying. And I knew 100% that the McChicken would be tender and pleasurable. I wiped my face with a paper napkin and tossed it with the other evidence in the brown paper bags. Then I put my car into drive. I knew where I wanted to go, but I had one quick stop to make on my way there. I pulled over at the Vendôme Metro and found a homeless person to give the bag of McDonald's to. Even he knew it was garbage and tossed it into his pile of junk next to him. 10 minutes later, after 4 deep heartburn burps and a wave of inexcusably smelly meat sweats, I was at Celeste's door. "You smell like a subway station, Valerie," Celeste stated. What does one even answer to that? Oh, I just stuffed myself like an out-of-work ballerina on a bulimic bender with a Mick-Christmas dinner on my way over. Before we get started on the inner workings of running Swap Club, Celeste, do you think I could use your bathroom? Celeste dangled a set of keys in her fingers. "These are the keys to the front and back doors. Clayton will be here Monday morning at 9 sharp to go over all the contracts and such. His number is on a post-it on my desk." Celeste paused and cleared her throat. "Your desk." "Clayton?" "Yes, Clayton, my advisor and lawyer whom you met in my office." I thought back and knew who she was talking about. Clayton was the older guy Celeste had spent the past year initiating me with, plotting together to see what crazy shit I'd consent to see if I was fit to take over Swap Club. Celeste jingled the keys in her fingers, snapping me back to reality. "Well, take them." I didn't even say that I wanted to do it. Celeste just tilted her head, smiled, and placed the keys in my hand and then closed my fingers over them. Swap Club gives people something to look forward to. The silver lining in an otherwise muted life. Promise me you will give them what they need. What if I don't know what they need? I didn't even know what I needed. You will. You have good instincts and no reservations. Just make sure you pay attention. Celeste walked down the steps as a taxi pulled up, leaving me standing on her Victorian stoop all by myself. Wait! I called after her as she stepped into the taxi. That's it? Swap Club is mine? What do I do now? Celeste blew me a kiss. My flight leaves soon. If you have any questions, save them for Monday. Clayton will tell you everything you need to know. Oh, and one last thing. Happy birthday. Celeste shut the car door and smiled as the taxi took her away. With nothing more than the keys in my hand, I was now the madam of Swap Club, and I had no idea what to do with myself. So I did the only thing I could think of. Tyler opened his door, and I immediately wrapped my hands around his neck and placed my lips against his. He was only taken aback for a moment, then he reciprocated my enthusiasm. Our kiss was deep and long, and was saying all the things that words couldn't. I need you. I want you. Fuck, let's do it right here. I pushed myself toward him, moving us into the vestibule as he closed the door behind me, still tangled in each other's grasp. Our tongues wild with lust. I started to unsnap my Levi's jeans shirt. I didn't want to waste any time. What's happening? Tyler broke free from my mouth. What are you doing? Was kinda hoping to have an orgasm on my birthday. I hope you weren't in the middle of something. I leaned in to continue kissing, but Tyler drew his head back. What about Ryan? Well, I didn't invite him, but if you're down, I can see if he is. I mean, it would make everything a lot easier on me. Tyler grabbed the back of my neck. Very cute. He kissed a line down my neck to my chest. You came for a birthday orgasm? Or two. I smiled at him. Tyler ripped open the remaining snaps of my shirt, unhooked my bra, and tossed them both onto the floor. I yanked the curtains closed, although the idea of his neighbors seeing me in a Tyler hand bra did intrigue me a little. Maybe I should open them again. Thanks to Celeste turning me into a sweet table for a night and making me an online sex slave, the dormant exhibitionist inside me had been awakened. But Montreal was not the place to parade around naked. Chances were, any people likely to pass by and see my mom tits were the same people likely to pass by me while standing around the dreaded carpool pickup after school. Clarification, the same people likely to pass by me while I sat in my car during the dreaded carpool pickup after school. More on that later. As I was contemplating bearing it all to the parent body of my children's school, Tyler brought me back to reality when he unbuttoned my pants and tugged them all the way down. There I was, basically naked, and I hadn't even made it past the boot rack. Tyler kept his eyes focused on mine while he kissed my stomach, my thighs, and held my ass in his hands. I watched in anticipation as he bit down on the elastic band of my G-string. I could feel it loosen from my body as he slowly dragged it down my legs. There I was, standing in his foyer, with my clothes at my ankles and his face between my legs. Tyler broke eye contact as he licked his lips and stared at my body. Man, I've missed you. He pulled me toward his mouth. Tyler, it hasn't been that long. I miss this. Tyler took a deep breath with his face just below my waist. He had been craving me, and I was satiating his appetite. Or was I? Tonight I would probably taste like McPussy or a Big McMuff. Perhaps a Vagina McMuffin with a quarter-pound her. Val? Tyler interrupted my internal stand-up routine by grazing his tongue against me. You hear? Yes, I whispered back. He pressed his tongue even harder against mine, and my knees started to shake. The same weak feeling I always got when my brain couldn't concentrate on keeping me up straight, while Tyler's mouth was against me. Good thing my thighs are stronger now from spinning, and can override my brain's attempts at collapsing to the floor. You taste so good, Tyler managed between gasps and moans. I guess he liked McDonald's. This was feeling really good, but I wanted more. I pushed him off me and then lowered myself onto him and straddled his thighs. No small feat when your ankles are tied together by a tangle of pants and underwear. I kept my eyes fixed on his now that I was steering the ship. I grinned at him while I undid his belt buckle, button, and then slowly slid down his zipper. I reached down inside his pants and pulled his hard erection out of his pants, and then leaned down and wet it with my mouth. Tyler lay on the floor panting, trying to catch his breath, while I removed my mouth. I kicked off my boot and set one leg free from the pant shackles that were binding my ankles. With more flexibility, I was able to place my body on top of him slowly and insert him inside me. I've once described Tyler's penis like a puzzle piece that just fit inside me. Two parts that just work so well together. We swiveled our hips to an imaginary rhythm that we could both hear in our minds. I increased my intensity and lowered myself parallel to his body because my knees were digging into the sandy tiles on the floor of his vestibule. Reality check when I turned my head to the side and was able to read the small print inside the tongue of his Nike. Focus, Val. Focus. I squeezed my eyes shut and grabbed the back of Tyler's neck as I rubbed myself up and down his shaft. My orgasm was so close, and I needed him to give it to me. I was capable of taking what I wanted. My biceps were beginning to burn as I towed myself up and down his body like a vertical climber. A horizontal climber. You know what I mean. I could feel Tyler's fingers digging into my back, trying to slow me down, but I wanted to come. That's what I came here for. I kept my momentum as I plunged down and up, down and up. I could feel his fingernails almost pierce my skin as he pulled me off him so he could come. His body convulsed, and it put me over the edge. Watching him come was still a turn-on. The air in my chest evaporated, and the ringing in my ears took over as my orgasm came over me like a massive wave crashing onto the shoreline. I collapsed next to him on the floor, not really minding the rubber mat almost touching my cheek for a few seconds, but then I rolled over and placed my head on his chest. We lay in silence, Tyler stroking my hair, and me trying to concentrate on the sound of his heart beating in his chest. While I contemplated whether or not I should unstick the snow brush from my side, it occurred to me that I was finally completely in the moment. I just had sex and was only mildly distracted by the messy freezer in my garage, filled with mysterious frozen food contents circa 2011. I wasn't thinking about Hallie's tooth under her pillow that I had forgotten last week. And that, thank God, she also had forgotten about. Note to self, to text my mom and have her put a $5 bill under Hallie's pillow up north tonight. Another note to self, tell my mom that the tooth fairy got confused and just realized that Hallie wasn't in Montreal but was up north with her grandmother, and that is why it took so long for the tooth fairy to do her job. Maybe I should just go up north tonight and do it myself. If I left here in the next 10 minutes, I could probably make it there by the kids' bedtime. Val? Tyler's hand stopped playing with my hair. You okay? Realizing that I was in the moment had taken me out of the moment. Typically this happened with Ryan, but I guess my mind could wander off even with Tyler. Maybe that meant I was comfortable, or maybe it just meant that I was never completely in the moment, even when I thought I was. I think I missed Ryan. I wondered what he was up to. Maybe I should call him. I was living in limbo, not knowing if I had just technically cheated on Ryan because we weren't officially separated. We hadn't actually discussed what the consequences were for turning down the flight to Toronto, but I had made a huge statement without saying one word. Val? Tyler said my name again, interrupting me from myself. I moved the snow brush over and climbed off him. When I stood up, I was sticky from both our orgasms, so I pulled off Tyler's t-shirt and wiped myself with it. I guess I should have asked if anyone was home. Tyler laughed, and I tossed his t-shirt back at him. Thanks. Tyler grinned as he watched me put my clothes back on. Is that it? I leaned down and kissed him on the forehead as he lay on the vestibule's floor. Is it ever? I made my way less than 1 foot to the door and let myself out. Where are you going? Up north, to be with my family. Ryan, too? I shrugged, because I knew all it would take was 1 phone call, and Ryan would be there to meet me. Tyler laid his head down on the floor and covered his eyes with his arms. You know, Val, I must have never loved anyone before I met you, because this pause button has only ever happened with you. And I don't even mind. You don't? I'd rather wait on pause than have you press stop. I like to press play when it comes to you anyway. I smiled. I thought you'd decided to stop playing. But we can always rewind. What? I didn't know what else to say. We'd taken this VCR metaphor for our relationship as far as it could go. So I blew him a kiss and let myself out. A little while later, I stared at the happy birthday text from Tyler as I sipped on my coffee in the Tim Hortons parking lot off Auto Route 15 northbound. I thought about where I had come from and where I was going, metaphorically and not just from McDonald's to Tim's, and I smiled. I had made my decision, and maybe it was the McDonald's hangover, but it was my decision not to make. Not to make. Yes, that is what I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed Ryan. I had learned over the past couple years that having my cake, and eating it too, might give a gal heartburn, but it's doable, especially on my birthday. Swap Club, Tyler, Ryan, I, Valerie Matthews, was going to have them all. Or so I thought. Growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Chili Davis. Chapter 2. Trouble with a fuck it list. 42 fucking years old. Not 40, not 41, but 40 fucking 2. I forced a smile as Hallie carried in my last-minute birthday lemon meringue pie. I knew my mom added it to the grocery cart at the corner store in Saint Agathe so that she could have a bite of something in the middle of the night, but not feel bad about it, because there were lemons in it. And, technically speaking, lemons are fruit. And placed it in front of me. Also, when life gives you lemons. The thick white dinner candles stuck out of the pie like chubby kids in a blow-up pool. I'm not even sure there were any lemons in the pie. Nothing says this isn't a birthday cake like celebrating 2 days early, not singing happy birthday, and 4 dinner candles poking out of a day-old pie. My sister Janet grinned. 2 years ago, I would have internalized the not birthday cake and cried that no one loved me and no one cared about me anymore. But not this year. I just had sex with Tyler and made it up north in time to blow out my birthday pie.
Make a wish, Mommy,
Hallie yelled. Yes, blow them out, Valerie. I can probably use them again if they don't melt down too much. What a surprise. My mother, Carol Matthews, was worrying about the salvation of her candles. Like if there's a prolonged power outage. Almost a decade ago, my mother found the perfect Rouge Cocoa lipstick at the Chanel counter in the Holt Renfrew. She bought cases of them in case they got discontinued. For the record, they haven't been discontinued, and most of the lipsticks have expired. She reapplies her lipstick 82 times a day, but I can see the anxiety every time she smears it across her lips. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, ready to make my wish, when all of a sudden Hallie whispered in my ear,
make a wish that Daddy wants us back.
I smiled at Hallie, the guilt stewing inside me, knowing we kind of wanted the same thing, but I was too afraid to wish for it, because if their father wanted to be with us, he could move himself back home where we had agreed to build our life together. I shouldn't have to wish for Ryan to want us. What if it never came true? How would I ever explain that to Hallie? She still believed in the tooth fairy for shit's sake. Okay, before the meringue gets covered in wax? My mom could see there was still a window to recycle the candles for the next ice storm, or to perhaps actually use them for a dinner. I blew out the candles, forgetting completely about making a wish, because I was preoccupied with making sure I didn't wish for something I would regret. My mom raised a slice of pie at me. You're 42 years old, Valerie. You'll always be my kid no matter how old you get. Well, at least until I drop dead. Pass me a plate. Carol motioned to the stack of paper plates. Such a sweet sentiment, Mom. Janet licked the meringue off her swollen finger. This tastes like ass, not pie. Janet laughed at her joke. This pie tastes like ass? My pie and ass tasted like McChicken. Pregnancy had done 3 things to Janet: swollen appendages, insatiable hunger, and 0 filter. Can you watch your language? I gestured towards Hallie, who was a sponge for cuss words and filthy language. She had finally stopped using the expression, take a piss, in reference to using the bathroom. A minor setback since our months of linguistical brain retraining after summer camp. No notes home from the principal this year. So far. Who wants pie? My mom, oblivious to the dirty joke, held the piece in the air and licked her finger. Janet burst out laughing. I had a bad feeling when Hallie saw an easy audience in my sister. She had a devious look in her eye.
Grandma, I have a secret to tell you.
My mother leaned in to listen to her secret, and then Hallie burped in her ear. Apparently a new trick from a friend at school. Janet went nuts. She was laughing so hard that I saw the vein on the side of her cheek darken. The vein on my mother's face darkened too, but for another reason. Carol Matthews didn't even say a word when she looked at me. I knew what she was thinking. If she were my daughter, I would take out my wooden pasta spoon. I got my mother's message loud and clear when she calmly stood up and said goodnight. Hallie, go to your room, I lashed out at her.
But Mom, I was just joking.
Corey piped in. Listen to your mother, Hallie. Go to your room like she asked. And then he looked at Janet. Woman, there is seriously something wrong with you. Janet was practically rolling in a puddle of her own piss. I looked at Corey, my eyes thanking him for backing me up. We had gotten off to a rough start when he started dating Janet, but now I believed he was a godsend.
Can't anyone take a joke anymore?
Hallie yelled as she stormed out of the living room and slammed the door to her bedroom. Nothing like your kid belching in your 68-year-old mother's ear to bring you back to reality. Janet laughed. A beat later, with Hallie out of earshot, we were all in tears, laughing hysterically, because we all knew that, at one time in our life, we had done something just as stupid. I won't even tell you about the time Janet and I cooked 9 pounds of hamburger meat and emptied it into the toilet of my parents' master bathroom. Sometime later, Corey and I cleaned up from dinner while my always serious son Michael watched Law & Order, and my sister snored away on the love seat. "How come you didn't tell us you were coming?" Corey wiped a dish and placed it back in the cupboard. I didn't want to hear any remarks from my mother or Janet about going to Rhine in Toronto. And to be honest, from you. I handed Corey another plate to dry. "From me? I'm the most neutral one here." Corey seemed surprised. I just didn't want to hear whether anyone liked the idea or not. I stopped what I was doing. I was having a revelation. Corey was right. He was neutral like that, and it made it easy for thoughts to just roll out. I'm too anxious lately to have all the chatter in my ears on top of listening to all the chatter in my head about what I'm doing to my family. Feeling too anxious or too guilty? Corey crossed his arms. "You seem so confident and self-assured. You care what people think?" "I sort of care what people think," I admitted. "I haven't eaten a meal alone in a restaurant. Ever. I won't get out of my car during pickup at school." "Because?" Corey asked. "Because I feel like a friendless fool if someone who knew me saw me there, all by myself, eating alone. It seems so lonely and depressing. And I'm afraid to be standing alone while the mom squads are all chatting together." "You don't like your own company?" "No, I love being alone at home, in my car, in the bath. I like being alone, just not in public. I know it's weird." "Because you feel vulnerable?" Corey said. "Because I feel vulnerable." "What are you guys talking about?" Michael chimed in. "Your mom is worried about Hallie." Corey placed the last dish away and tucked the dish towel over its holder. "See you in the morning. I'm gonna get Jabba the Hutt to bed." Michael opened the fridge and took the leftover lemon meringue out and placed it on the counter. Then I watched as he opened and closed the unfamiliar kitchen drawers until he found the baggie of half-melted dinner candles and placed them back into the cake and lit them with a fireplace later. "We should do this properly, don't you think?" Michael held the meringue in his hands and then started to sing Happy Birthday to me. I could feel the tears swelling in my eyes. "Now, make a real wish." I closed my eyes. Dear God, I wish that so long as I give everyone else what they need, I can have everything I want, because I'm a good person. Amen. Okay, and health. Yeah, see, I'm a good person. Amen. I opened my eyes and smiled at Michael. Thanks for that. Good night, Mom. What did I do right to have such a sweet kid like you? I wiped the tear from my cheek. I actually don't know. Michael smiled. I went upstairs and found Hallie asleep in my bed. How could one be so sweet and the other such a troublemaker? I climbed into bed, too tired to wash my face and brush my teeth. I checked my phone. 2 missed calls from Ryan and 1 text message. Tried calling, but no answer. I guess you're not coming to Toronto. Happy birthday. It was my choice not to go to Toronto. So why was I so worried when I saw Ryan's message? What the fuck was going on inside my head? I tossed and turned all night. Good thing that Hallie slept like a log. All I could think about was Ryan and Tyler in Swap Club. I was only 12 hours into attempting to juggle all 3, and I was already failing. I watched as the 3 on my clock turned to a 4, and then to a 5, and then a 6 before I knew it. Hallie was awake, ready to get up and start the day, and I hadn't slept for 1 minute. We got out of bed and quietly made our way downstairs. Was I not happy with the status quo? Was I going to rock the boat? Here's the thing about being happy. It's a drug that gets people into trouble. Yep, that's what I said. Trouble. Things can only keep you happy for so long. Like smelling the same smell for too long. That's the problem with human nature. We are happy until whatever it is making us happy isn't really making us happy anymore. That's when you start to think about not rocking the boat because it used to make you happy, but we all want what we want. It may be denied or suppressed or bottled up or redirected, but eventually, not rocking the boat feels like a jail sentence, and happiness is the fix. Then you have to have the guts to go after it, or rot in your boat. Either way, there is a big chance there will be trouble. Trouble, 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 trouble. I pondered what it was about Ryan that made me happy as I poured my coffee, and Hallie, my genetically engineered troublemaker, watched Teen Titans Go on her iPad. Why was he even in the running anymore? Was it the nostalgia? Was he worth the trouble to get us back to the place where it was great? Trouble, trouble, trouble. You know, if you say the word out loud over and over, it turns into gibberish. It loses all meaning. Maybe if I thought of trouble enough, I would stay out of it. The funny thing was, I was literally baking a trouble cake and frosting it with the same, and fully planning to eat all of it. It wasn't long before, one by one, my mom, Michael, and Corey trickled in from their slumber, all rested, but still cottage lazy. Janet, on the other hand, didn't get up until around 11. She must have been exhausted from all the cackling she did at my mother's expense the night before. Plus, it wasn't like we were waiting on her to do anything. The kids played cards with Corey, who taught them how to gamble with gummy bears. And I sipped a green tea and looked through magazines my mother picked up in town. Something about the country air makes you want to stay in pajamas all day and sip warm things and read about Quebec celebrities you didn't even know exist. Whatever happened to Mitsu? I was preparing lunch, which sounds fancier than what I was actually doing, which was stirring the powdered cheese into a Kraft dinner, when I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Hi, it's Felix. Felix? I sorted through my brain and finally matched the voice and name to a picture. Felix from my spin class. Felix from my spin class, whom I'd never given my phone number to. Hi. I hope you don't mind, but I asked the Tempo Spin girl to give me your number. I don't mind, but she gave it to you? I didn't mind, obviously. It was my spin buddy Felix, after all. Yeah, it was actually much easier than I thought it would be. She's such a moron, Felix said. Yeah, not that I mind that you're calling me, I wanted to clarify. So, what's up? I was curious to know why he was calling. My mind wandered for a second. Was he going to ask me out on a date? I mean, we were just spinning friends. And Felix was really not my type. That's the problem with being friends with men. They always want more. I wanted to call you to say goodbye. You fool, his wife just died, Val. Goodbye? I'm glad my mind wandered quietly in my head and not out loud. Yeah, I'm moving to Arizona where my sister is. Arizona? What about your mom? I remembered his sweet mom and how she said those amazingly kind things to me after Felix's wife's funeral. She's already there with my sister. Wow. Felix, can I ask why? It's been tough since Nora passed away last summer. It's not easy being in Montreal. I see her everywhere I go. I need to go somewhere where every coffee shop, boutique, and street lamp doesn't remind me of her. Out of all the should-haves and could-haves on my mind, up until now, it hadn't occurred to me to reach out to Felix and see how he was doing. I really should have checked on him. I had no idea you were so sad. I'm so sorry, Felix. I feel terrible. It's okay. I'm going to heal in the desert with my family. Montreal isn't exactly the best place for people to get over their loss. Keep in touch, Felix. I'll miss you. Thanks for everything, Val. I probably stuck around longer than I would have if it weren't for you and Tempo Spin. Take care of yourself. I had a lump in my throat as I hung up the phone. His words played in the back of my head. Montreal isn't exactly the best place for people to get over their loss. I looked over at my mother, who had lost my father years ago and never left Montreal for the same reason Felix needed to leave. Generation after generation of Montrealers never leave the city. That keeps its hold on you. Unless you marry an American. Montreal was a city of nostalgia, a city that harbored memories. For my mother, the memories were precious, but for Felix, they were a sore reminder of better times. I thought about how I was spending my birthday without Ryan, and I thought about Melissa and how our friendship had disintegrated over the past 2 years. I thought about my losses this year and how perhaps Felix was right about getting away and healing. Smells good. Corey stretched and pulled a mug from the cupboard and poured himself some coffee. Craft dinner? Yep. I portioned out the bowls while avoiding eye contact. You okay? Corey knew I wasn't. My friend is moving away. Which friend? Melissa? Helen? Felix. He's my spinning partner. I don't think I can go back there without him. Why? I didn't want to admit to Corey that I had another anxiety I didn't even know about. And that was setting foot inside Tempo Spin without my wingman. I'm gonna give the kids lunch. Help yourself. I carried the bowls of craft dinner out to the kids and watched them devour it like it was a gourmet pasta from Italy. We spent the rest of the day doing pretty much the same thing. The kids ventured outside, and my mom and I watched from the window while they tobogganed. Janet took a third nap, while Corey went to the store in town and bought a bunch of stuff we didn't need, like marshmallow spread and beef jerky. You know, the stuff you only buy while on vacation? I responded to Ryan's text by telling him he should come to Montreal at the end of the week and spend some time with the kids. I wanted to see him too, and perhaps open up a conversation about us seeing more of each other. The next morning, ready to head home and face the real world. Well, maybe not everyone's real world, but my real world. Assuming not everyone is presented with the task of running their own fuck camp. Corey intercepted me in the kitchen as I was pouring myself a coffee.
I've been thinking about what we talked about, and I have an idea.
An idea? I was in a fog from my sleepless night.
You're gonna come to Mai Tai with me,
Corey said resolutely. I am going to what? I had never heard the words he just said. Maybe if I said them enough times, it would actually mean something.
Muay Thai. It's a sport, a combat sport.
Corey took a sip of coffee and then put his mug down.
Come here.
I put my mug down too, and just as I approached him, he shoved my shoulder. What the hell?
See? You don't even know how to defend yourself. But worse, you're walking around vulnerable. We need to teach you how to protect yourself. You may act like you're okay and confident, and maybe your quick wit helps you with Melissa and that chick, Sabrina Weinberg.
Weinstein, I said, although bitch would have been a more suitable title.
Berg, Stein, man, every other suffix you need to protect yourself from. And then you'll be able to do anything without worrying about anyone but yourself.
I looked at him for a moment and rubbed my shoulder. Okay, I'll do it.
That's not all.
Corey smiled. What do you mean? I asked, afraid he was going to hit me again. I took a step back and braced myself.
I'm giving you a fuck it list.
A fuck it list?
Yup, you're going to learn how to say fuck it. Fuck what they think, fuck the mean girl narrative going on inside your head. Fuck it.
I thought I had a pretty solid fuck it attitude over the past 2 years, but I wasn't about to tell Corey what I've been up to. So, what's on this fuck it list? Like it was anything compared to being a member of the local fuck club. I took another sip of coffee. My brain needed the caffeine even more now.
Well, Muay Thai for one. You'll have lessons with my coach, Ray. Don't worry, I'll be there for the first one. And before the end of the year, you're going to have lunch alone and stand outside your car during carpool. Or else.
Or else what? I didn't think there would be a threat involved.
Or else, I'm going to tell your mother about Swap Club.
So, I guess Corey knew about the fuck club membership. Whoever you hate will end up in your family. You don't like gays? You're gonna have a gay son. You don't like Puerto Ricans? Your daughter's gonna be coming home living the vida loca. Chris Rock. Chapter 3. The More the Merrier and Other Lies. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Montreal is a close-knit village of a city. I could make a joke listing Montreal as one of the most incestuous cities, a place where a scandal is only 2 streets away. And you know her because she also goes to your lash girl. Living in Montreal is a victimless crime, most of the time. In some cases, the list of casualties can grow, depending on how close you live to the center radius of the decory circle and how big your mouth is. Unrelated is your status in Swap Club. If you're a member, and that's a whole other story. So, because everyone knows everyone in Montreal, or at least someone who knows someone will know you, the fact that Corey knew about Swap Club and that Ryan and I were members was not as shocking as you'd think. All I kept thinking while Corey smiled and took his and Janet's coffee to their room was that hopefully they weren't interested in a membership. Although, I would be the one who had to interview them now, so I guess there was no real chance for them living out that fantasy. They'd have to find another kink club. I wondered who had told them. Which one of my swap dates knew Corey? I thought back to Peter, Tia, Ari Klein. Which one of them spilled the beans? The truth was, it didn't matter. Everyone breaks the rules. Even I had time and time again. Now that I was in charge, Maybe it was time to look at the rules and see what changes needed to be made. Maybe eliminate some rules altogether. It was my club now, after all. Sort of. We need to pack up the house and get on the road by 11. My mother swooped in wearing her leopard print bathrobe. I have a nail appointment at 3, and I can't be late. I knew there was no point in telling her that it only took an hour to get home. Besides, I was craving my house, my bed, my things.
Grandma, I'm sorry I burped on you last night,
Hallie said. It's okay, Hal. I blame your mother anyway. And then she kissed Hallie on the head and rolled her eyes at me. That's life. If our kid screws up, it's our fault. If we screw up, it's our fault. So when did Carol Matthews no longer get blamed for my mistakes? I thought about that as we caravanned home. Janet rode in my car with the kids because Corey wanted to make a few stops before going home, and my mom had her pristine Mercedes taking her to a manicure 2.5 hours early. I watched my mom squirm when Janet asked her for a ride home. My mother stared at Janet's pregnant stomach, no doubt imagining her water breaking all over her spotless upholstery. You should go home with Valerie. Her truck will be more comfortable. Besides, you hate my driving, and I don't want the stress of driving a pregnant woman. I watched in my rearview mirror as our fleet of cars followed me onto the autoroute. It was a mild Sunday in December, temperatures hovering around 0 degrees Celsius, and quite beautiful out. I opened my window and took a deep breath of fresh air. I could see Hallie and Michael blissfully plugging into their iPads. My attention moved to Janet, shifting in her seat. My puke phobia kicked in, and I immediately got anxious about her being carsick. My eyes darted back and forth between the road in front of us and Janet's legs unable to sit still. You okay? I asked nervously. Nope, Janet replied. I started contemplating whether the car would safely stop if I jumped out. She turned and whispered, My ass is fucking killing me. Your ass?
Your ass, Auntie Janet?
Hallie chimed in. Hallie, put your headphones back on and watch your show. Mommy and Auntie need privacy. Hallie laughed.
Auntie has a pain in the ass.
And then she put her headphones back on. Okay, that's enough, Hallie. I spoke sternly to her through the rearview mirror, although I had to admit I was impressed with her quick wit. So what happened? I turned my attention back to Janet, who was still squirming in her seat. Nothing is happening. Like, nothing. I haven't taken a proper shit in weeks, and now I have hemorrhoids the size of Oompa Loompas. And let me tell you, they ain't pretty. Janet shifted again. My mind wandered off and pictured Oompa Loompas in their weird green wigs dancing and doing strange acrobatic cartwheels on Janet's asshole. First of all, you're pushing too hard. I read an article at the gyno's office that you need to breathe into your sphincter and let nature do its job. Second, how are you able to look at your asshole? You can't even see your toes. What the fuck? Breathe into my sphincter? I swear, I thought you told me this happens after childbirth. Legit, I push for over an hour, and then a fucking Tic Tac comes out. Janet sat to the side and opened her window. Maybe we should get you some Metamucil? I tried to think of other things people use to make them go. I drink Metamucil. I eat prunes, dates, dried apricots, applesauce, broccoli, pears, nuts. I'm starting my own magazine called Laxative Living. Janet grabbed my purse and hoisted half her ass onto it. Sorry, but a girl's gotta do. Let's talk about something else to get your mind off it. My ass was starting to tingle. Hemorrhoids are contagious if you talk about them for too long. I use mirrors. Janet confessed, turning her head to look out the window. What?
Mirrors. 2 of them. One on the nightstand, and then a handheld to get the angle.
I could see in my peripheral vision that Janet had started unconsciously acting out her mirror procedure. Okay, enough. Can we please talk about something else?
All right. You want to change the topic? You think of something.
Well, I was thinking your apartment is going to be pretty tight once the twins arrive.
I know. And to add insult to injury, our landlord is raising our rent.
Janet shifted her weight again. So, we already talked about it. Why don't you move into my house? Save your money, and I looked at the kids in the mirror. We can help with the twins.
Auntie Janet is going to move in with us?
Hallie proclaimed from the back seat. With all the talk about hemorrhoids, I'd completely forgotten the ears in the back seat.
Yeah, please, Auntie J, can you move in?
Michael pleaded. If you are cool with it, you and Corey can move into the basement. There's really nothing down there. But with some creativity and a thick coat of paint and fumigation, it can be ready in a couple weeks. I smiled at Janet, who was squashing my poor little purse that my mother had given me over 10 years ago.
Wow, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much.
Say yes.
Yes. Wait, let me talk it over with Corey. But I think yes.
Janet winced as she moved to put her hand on mine and give me a loving squeeze. I merged onto the Decoree Expressway and realized that Corey and Janet would be my support team too. I had no idea what life was going to look like this year, but it couldn't hurt to have some live-in help while I was trying to recruit and interview new members and run my fuck club. I dropped Janet and her hemorrhoids off at her apartment and then took the kids home. The kids looked exhausted from doing absolutely nothing. They rolled out of the car and into the house, and then collapsed on the nearest couch. I brought the bags upstairs and started to unpack. About an hour later, Ryan arrived. I could hear Hallie intercept Ryan as he was coming up the stairs. Fuck. I hoped she didn't mention anything about Janet moving in before I had the chance to.
Auntie Janet and Uncle Corey are moving in,
Hallie cheered. Fuck.
And babies too.
Fucking fuck. And then they came into the room.
Mommy never told me.
Ryan was looking right at me, pretending to talk to Hallie.
That's so interesting. I had no idea about that.
Ryan was being facetious. His eyes had already moved into his angry, slow blink. I could only imagine if I also added the news. And that's not all. Guess who's the new madam of Montreal's members-only swingers club? You're looking at her. Yay! Hallie, could you give us a minute? I motioned for Hallie to leave our room, and then Ryan closed the door.
So, your sister and Corey are moving in?
Ryan wasn't enthused. It's not for sure. I told her I had to discuss it with you first. Liar.
Why?
Ryan sat on the bed. 'Cause they asked and I couldn't say no? Liar.
Why can't they live with your mother? She has an entire house to herself.
Ryan knew what he was saying about my mother sharing her living space was ridiculous.
How long?
Just a few months. Liar.
Don't you think this is a conversation that should have started between us and then trickled down to Janet and Corey and then our kids?
He ran his hand through his hair in exasperation.
Why am I the last to know that your family is moving into my house?
Your house? My eyes shot spears into his chest.
Never mind. It's fine. Whatever, it's not like this affects me anyway.
Ryan conceded, and then sat on the bed.
Okay.
Okay? I was surprised he was cool with it.
I was thinking.
Ryan ran his hand through his hair again, although this time sheepishly, and looked straight at the ground. Bad news was coming. No one could read Ryan's body language better than I could. I leaned against the wall to brace myself when I saw him rub his temple. Thinking of what, Ryan?
Thinking that it was better for you to stay here with everyone instead of coming to Toronto.
He looked at me briefly and then back at the floor. Really? I said calmly, as if he were paying me a compliment. What makes you think that? I asked, still calmly.
When you decided not to come,
Ryan was rubbing his knees with his palms.
I realized we were probably better off apart. I'm sorry, Val, but I never should have pleaded for you to be with me and move the kids away from their home. Mostly because...
Ryan looked up at me, and his eyes were full of tears. It made it impossible to keep eye contact with him.
I can't take the rejection. I get it. You've moved on. And I guess I should too.
Ryan, you hired Claudia De Silva to work with you in Toronto. You know, the most interesting person you took for lunches, and God knows what else after you screwed her in Swap Club. I never would have known Claudia was hidden in Toronto with you had I not answered your phone that day. How am I supposed to just drop everything and turn our lives upside down after all that? I was still scarred by our past. The oblivion of our relationship had manifested until we were face to face and old feelings came swarming in.
Right. So what about that guy? When was the last time you were with him?
He couldn't say